resolution to conduct the prior year's audits after the tax season in May, and that was approved by all 3 supervisors. Additionally, I'd like to challenge the editor to provide a list of all the supposed 2-to-1 votes on motions. I think you will find a blank page. Finally, next time, the editor might try reading his own reporter's article on the meeting first. On to the safety report. Accidents in January of this year, there were 15 accidents versus 19 last January for a 21% decrease. 3 of the accidents were at intersections. Of the 12 non-intersection accidents, 4 were on Route 1 and 2 were on Route 52. The Township police activity in January, 74 calls were received from county radio. There were 5 criminal investigations, 99 routine assignments, 8 false alarms, 12 automobile accidents responded to, 34 traffic citations were issued, and 39 traffic arrests were made. The highlight for the police was they have been working with an area task force on daytime house burglaries, break-ins. I'm happy to report 2 arrests were made for receiving stolen property. Some loot has been recovered, and most importantly, the break-ins have seemed to have ceased. And I have 1 action item. The Safety Committee meeting at their meeting last week recommended that the Rosedale and McFarland intersection become a 4-way stop. The Chief and I both concur on that recommendation. I therefore move that we take action to accomplish this change.
Is there a second to this? My own comments. This has been talked about before. I would like to see that we table the subject and have further discussion. I'm talking Hilldale or Rosedale?
No.
Which?
Rosedale and McFarland.
Rosedale and McFarland. That's where the blinking light is.
Yes.
At the window. Do we have any traffic expert type people giving an opinion about that? I'm not ready to quite jump into it. I know it's not a good intersection. Over many years we've had trouble with that intersection. We've had accidents. We've tried to do everything we can think to do. And I think we're at the limit of what we can do other than this next step that you're proposing.
Yeah, what is the next step?
Yeah. And I'm reluctant to do that. I've heard pros and cons. It's one of the 2 through roads in the township, and I'm not sure that I'm quite ready. I could be persuaded, but I'd like to hear other people talk about it before I go to.
Okay. Well, I'll reiterate the safety committee and.
Okay. Albert, you about to make a comment?
Mr. Chairman, you said you wanted some other input. I will give you that. This has been a problem for a number of years. There have been some serious accidents there. The severity of the accidents has gone down since we put the flashing light in. 4-way stops were proposed in the past, but the problem with a 4-way stop in the past is as you crested the hill going west towards Kennett Square or west towards McFarland, the engineers were afraid you'd be rear-ending the stopped cars. It was a very short distance. Once the flashing light went up, you now know that the intersection is there for cars traveling from the railroad tracks going towards McFarland Road. I'm reluctant on 4-way stop myself, but sometimes they become a necessity. On this particular one, under the PennDOT Safe Roads, Local Roads program, last year, Kennett and Associates were supposed to do a study on Kale Road, but the Township and PennDOT working together reduced the accidents there. And since we were provided this grant opportunity study, the supervisors at the time, provided a phone call, I think, took it and said, well, why don't we study the intersections we're having problems with? Kennett and Associates, engineers, traffic engineers, looked at Rosedale and McFarland, Hillandale and McFarland, Bayard and Rosedale, and Bayard and Hillandale. And we did every recommendation they put in there, advanced warning, the flashing light, everything. And it's reduced the severity of accidents, I said, but not the accidents totally. So the next step was the 4-way stop that is included in the engineer study. That was the only study. So that was the next recommendation. The safety committee discussed it, and we thought that was the only way we had to go. Short of the traffic light, which is not justified yet. When the development goes in, if it goes in around that, you'll probably see the traffic light there. But right now, we're at the four-way stop.
I'd like to comment as well, Mr. Chairman. I think that it's very important and instructive that the safety committee discussed this at great length and was in favor of making the change. This is something that has come up through the residents as well as from at least 2 supervisors. So I think that's a very important consideration. I think that equally as important is the fact that it's expected that there's going to be a development, the BOS development in that block, on that corner, just above that corner, that's going to have 250, I think, residents. So that what's going on at that intersection now is going to become grossly compounded by the additional cars that are coming down that hill to turn left to go to the high school and to the other schools, or to continue straight across to go up to the medical center or to the corporate center. I think that it's prudent to address this in a timely fashion, and certainly before those other cars are on the road.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Scudder. The future impact of some of that particular development you're talking about is sometime in the future, but be that as it may, I am persuaded by everyone's comments, then I will agree to approve that motion. The motion that's on the table is to have that intersection be a four-way stop. Is that correct? Correct.
Now, does that mean removing the poles and making fully stop signs?
Probably not. I don't know. You might have 4 blinking red lights in all directions.
To become radar 4 directions, yeah.
That was the expectation.
Yeah.
That there's now a yellow light, and there'd be a blinking light, and you'd be able to see it as you came
It would be
towards Red Borough. You'd see that up there, and that would give you lead time as you cross the ridge.
John.
Is there an inconsistency between a yellow flashing light and a stop sign? I don't know.
Well, I guess, and I'm not privy to the details of this, but I guess that the yellow flashing light would then be changed to a red flashing light, and there would be a stop sign going east and west.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Yes.
I live,
I'm sorry, who are you, please?
I'm Shirley Wiener, and I live at Victoria Gardens. And I come up with Garland almost every day to Rosedale to make a right turn. The person living on the left corner has bushes that go way out and fencing. And you have to pull your car out in order to see if traffic is coming. People coming up that hill are going more than the speed limit. And many times I've had to emergency pull myself back. It's an accident waiting to happen. And until that four-way stop comes up, can you please have them cut back their bushes and move their fence so that you can see traffic?
I share your concern, Mrs. Mayor. I use that intersection at least as often or more every day than do you, and I realize pulling up, going south to the property on the left of that boxwood hedge is
It's a hazard.
yet it complies with all the requirements for setback and sight distance. I'm sorry. The owner of the property is a very cooperative person, and I'm sure that if we go to him again and ask him if he'd trim the hedge back a few more inches, he would probably do that. And he will do that. That's it. I'm not guaranteeing anything because it's his edge, and he has the right to have it there, and it is
It's an accident waiting to happen.
Okay, are there any other comments? All those in favor of the motion on the table, say aye. Aye. I think we're back to you.
I just wanted to announce that at the last meeting, somebody recommended that I put a link on the website so that people could sign up for an email list, and we have done that.
Now, insofar as a public meeting policy, we've done a fair bit of work with our legal counsel. We have a policy already in place. A number of other townships around us have policies that amplify our own, and I have tried to compress the other comments from other townships into a revised one for ourselves. Let me explain one of the reasons why I've done this. Who here was at the last public meeting? Quite a few of you. I was terribly uncomfortable with the conduct of that meeting. There was a great deal of cross-talking, there was a lot of interruptions, and it didn't seem to serve a useful purpose. So the attempt here is to get more structure into the meeting. And I'm not sure I want to read all of this to you. You might be as bored as I was writing it, but I'll give you some of the highlights of it. And it's certainly going to be made available on our website for other comment. And by the way, if this doesn't work, we will change it. Okay, and that's right up the front. Okay, whereas a meeting chairman has a right and duty to complete its business in an orderly, timely manner, the following applies to any meeting conducted or sponsored in whole or in part by the township, including volunteer organizations. Meeting chairpersons may impose a time limit on the meeting and on individual speakers, so all persons have an opportunity to speak, and the meeting ends at a reasonable hour. At the beginning of the meeting, the public will be invited to add subjects to the agenda. Each subject presenter will be limited in time to 3-minute presentation. Of his or her subject, there will be no discussions at that time. Clarification of the subject may be needed. All subjects will be added to the agenda, which will then be considered a limited public agenda. The public will be invited to discuss each agenda subject. Each questionnaire will be limited to 3 minutes and will only address the person who nominated the agenda subject. The chairman may terminate a speaker's presentation if dialogue is considered inappropriate, non-germane, argumentative, repetitive, or pointless. An unruly, disruptive person may be requested to leave or face legal action. Audio or video taping in public meetings. I'm not going to read the details of it, but it essentially says that we, the township, request a 24-hour notice from someone who wants to do that. That's not terribly important, frankly. Video equipment setup must occur prior to a scheduled start of the meeting. Setup is not permitted once the meeting has been called to order. Video and audio and related equipment and operators must conduct the recording at a designated location in the back of the meeting room or from the public seating area. That does not apply to audio. Roving videotaping during the meeting will not be permitted. Any comments? Let's give it a try.
I would like to object to that, Mr. Chairman. First of all, at the work session that we had last week, it was agreed by all three of us that we would go upstairs and schedule a time when we could talk about this and reach an understanding as to what it contained, and then send it to Bob Adams for a legal review. We get to have that meeting, we get to discuss it, and Bob Adams has not reviewed it. So I'm quite concerned that we do this. I'm quite concerned that, and to quote you, why I've done this, and we will change it. There's a distinction between I and we, and I think that this is something that the board should be acting upon, and so I oppose it. I also want to say that I think it is unconstitutional because it attempts to limit and control the free expression of the citizens, and I think that it's unconstitutionally vague You put in, as you read through this and talked about it, you said video and audio related equipment operators must conduct the recording at a designated location in the back of the meeting room or from the public seating area. That's a quote. And then you said, but that's not important and that certainly doesn't apply to video. That's not written down. So this is an ad hoc winging and I'm opposed to it.
Carter, would you be good enough, if you would please, to, and I think you have it there, if not, I'll give you my copy, would you go over this yourself? Make your own. Bob and I have met, we've also met to discuss the existing policy.
Well, you see, Michael, that's part of my problem. We agreed that we were all going to do this, and now you tell us that Bob and you have met to give this to us, and if I'd like to look at it after the fact, knock yourself out. And I'm very much opposed to that.
All right, let's just table the subject. We will meet and let me know when you can do this, and we will go from there. Are you comfortable with that?
Certainly am, thank you.
Okay, moving on.
Question?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ben.
No, you don't.
Okay.
One of
You
you.
said you and Bob had talked about it. That constitutes a public meeting with two supervisors, a majority at the meeting. So you violated the sunshine law right there.
What I think you're driving at, it does not comprise a public meeting unless we take some action, and we have not.
Well, even if you deliberate, that's in the law.
Okay, moving forward.
Well, another question on that.
We're going to take only a few more questions on this. We have an agenda, regardless of the policy. The prior policy of meetings still prevails.
Yeah,
Go ahead, please.
Well, I'm surprised this was a public announcement on the public meeting policy rather than an issue. But when you looked at other townships, did you, and compared against what you're proposing, were they more lenient or tougher? What did you find when you made that comparison?
Bill, I would ask you to do the same comparison and come to your own conclusion. You're asking me to give a very subjective opinion as to other policies,
Yeah.
okay? Question over here.
Yes, Richard Gaw, Chester County Press. I was just curious, Mr. Chairman, what, in your estimation, constitutes inappropriate, non-germane, argumentative, repetitive, or pointless, as you specified in these conduct of business by citizens? Thank you.
Well, I think the answer is in the definition of each of those, which is self-explanatory, and I can't give you any better definition.
Then my next question, follow-up, is who determines what that is considered? Who
This is
can-
very subjective. I imagine the chairman would. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. John, I think you had something you wanted to mention on the bikeway. It would be appropriate at this time.
I know the bikeway billing is going to be discussed, but I want to expand that discussion when that agenda item comes
Okay,
up.
all right.
Are you jumping over the task force for a reason, or you just didn't remember it was there?
Well, the bikeway added verbally just a little while ago. Let's talk about the task force. As you know, there was an idea to form a series of task force populated by people in the township who discuss and report necessarily on findings that pertain to a series of particular subjects. One of which was the audit, another was the financial condition or policies and procedures of the township, and three others. The intent was to try to get a cross-section of people to man these task forces, and an attempt was made to staff with representative people representing the population as a whole. So toward that end, and the first committee that was to be, first task force that was to be populated was the audit. And toward that end, the Planning Commission has nominated a particular person. There are nominations due from, and this is again subject to general discussion and approval, each of the three supervisors and I think the three supervisors combined. Am I right? Yeah. That's the proposal. The task force, none of the task force have been formed, and none of them obviously have been in the meeting. We wanted to bring this up again tonight to see if there's any traction under that subject. There certainly has been a lot of contention about a number of things in the township, principally the audit. And to shed light onto the entire subject of the audit, the task force was thought to be a way of looking into the issues and reporting.
Mr. Chairman, I want to go on record on this matter as well. At that work session, the three of us agreed that we would go upstairs, check our schedules for a time when we could get together and talk through the details of this, because there was a lot of discussion at the work session trying to understand it, to determine what the ground rules were, who was going to serve, what the parameters were, what the deadlines were for when the task force was going to be resolved, concluded. I think you referred to it as sunshine, a sunset time goal. Thank you. And we went upstairs, and Bob Hamaker and I suggested that one of the things we could do was to compress three different headings into one, audit, taxes, and budget, and you didn't agree with that. And then we never had an opportunity to resolve any of the questions we were supposed to, including particularly the time when we were going to get together and try to resolve this. And when it was all over, you got up and left, turned the lights off as I was sitting there. So it didn't end in a cooperative or collegial fashion. And we're left here with what I would suggest is a half-baked proposal. And I think that it's unfortunate that we are at that situation. But I'm mostly concerned that it hasn't gone to Bob Adams for his review, and that none of the ground rules have been established, and the purpose is not yet established for the audit task force, much less for a three-way that includes all the financial in one package. So I'm opposed to this as it stands here like this.
Fine. Do you have any constructive thought as to how we should proceed forward?
Yeah, that we do what we agreed to do last Wednesday. That is set time to sit down and talk about it, work it through, give it to Bob Adams, and then present it for the consideration of the citizens. And that could be done rather quickly, I think.
Well, I'll have to come back to you or discuss openly the reason it needs to go to Bob Adams. This is nothing more than an ad hoc township committee, and we have the authority to do any of that sort of thing. Why it's not binding. Even the recommendations, if the task force goes forward, are not binding. So, insofar as a review by Bob Adams, that's off the table as far as I'm concerned. Insofar as getting together to try to scope out the mission of these task forces, we talked about that. We did. You, Bob, and I did talk about that. And we came to the conclusion that there was no mission statement needed for them. It was important that they establish that themselves.
You decided that. I did not agree to that at all.
If that was the case, then there was 2 to 1 on it.
And that's a vote behind the doors?
There wasn't a vote.
Right, that's right. But you're the one who said 2 to 1.
It was not behind the doors. Why do you say that?
If we had voted, that would have been a violation of
Open
something.
public meeting.
You know, upstairs is when we were talking about doing that. That was behind the doors being closed in the conference room.
Now, where do we go from here?
Mike, it should be on that. It really should.
Well, if that'll
Because
solve the
it-
problem, we'll do it.
To make sure it's all being done properly, it really should.
All right. I think we've had enough on this statement. With you, we will come to an agenda, which will go to Bob Adams.
I move we table this.
They're going to meet.
We will meet.
Any other meeting?
Oh, yes. John Robbins, our representative to SECRA, called me last week and announced that he had been asked to be the chair of the board of directors of SECRA. He felt this is a very prominent position, and he was pleased to do it, and he was pleased to continue to represent Kennett Township on the board. Okay, the road report, February 20 to March 19. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, John, this is you, the urban bikeway.
May I ask, on the sector, is that something that we need to vote on?
No.
No, two in addition.
Someone say yes? Sorry, did someone say yes?
Mike was just announcing that.
Yeah, it's an announcement.
He is our representative already.
No. John, we're on the urban invoice.
I guess I'd like some action on a couple of things. One, we discussed in the work session paying the bills of urban engineers on the bikeway design project. And perhaps you could deal with that first so we can pay the engineer.
This is the invoice John gave us at the work session.
Yes, and we proposed paying half of the 5,000, whatever it
It's
was.
5,000 greater at 62.49. He asked that we pay half.
We need a motion?
And so moved.
Moved and seconded. Comments, questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, I have another issue that relates to that. What you have to realize is it takes a lot of time for government to do things. We got a request on February 7th from PennDOT to enact take five actions that would enable this project to move forward. That was on February 7th. The next day, on February 8th, Tom Nail and I appeared before the work session for the Board of Supervisors and presented those 5 items. The board subsequently requested more detail, so on February 17th, we gave them 70-some pages of documents to support what they asked for. We discussed it again on February 14th. They had an opportunity to review all the paperwork and had no comments or questions. I got an email this morning from PennDOT asking, again, their request was 6 weeks ago, asking, is the township ready to act on these things? What I'm asking you all tonight to do is to take action. We reviewed all the material. We have 2 resolutions and a reimbursement agreement that I don't believe can wait until the April meeting because we're now holding up the project. So I'm asking you to take action on things you've already reviewed, authorizing passing of those 2 resolutions and executing the reimbursement agreement when Tom and I follow through on the action that you approved on the 14th of March, and that is to work with the township engineer to get those documents ready for execution. Does that make sense?
Do we need the 2 resolutions?
John's asking you to approve it on the work session, is what he's asking.
That's exactly right.
Because he's saying he will not have time to wait until the April meeting.
Yeah, we're holding
those 2 resolutions at the work session.
It was all in that packet. Did you give, I believe,
Yes.
it was in that packet that was handed out.
It's a very straightforward thing. These are actions that will enable the township to manage the project that's fully funded by the Federal Highway Administration. But you can't do it unless you meet PennDOT's requirements. resolutions and reimbursement agreements. Otherwise, we're going to hold up the project. So you can take action now authorizing all the audience to ask questions, or first ask questions and discuss it, and then we can act on it, hopefully at a work session. The reason you can't do it tonight is we're going to meet with the township engineer tomorrow and have him spend a few days getting those resolutions prepared for your signature.
So we don't need to do this tonight.
Well, what we should do, I think, is let the audience know that you're going to act at a future work session. It's non-emergency, I guess, but if we wait another month, it's going to delay the project.
Does anyone have any questions about what John has presented? John, I think that's your answer.
Tom and I, with the township engineer, will get the resolutions to you by the March 28th work session. And I would like you to execute at that
Do
time.
you want a consensus from Ms. Al? We can't give you a binding motion unless you...
I would like a consensus. Not everybody agrees.
I agree, that the board of supervisors agree.
They all agree.
We are...
All right, Mr. Scudder?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Moving forward, bids for materials were advertised and bids were opened. Low bids were decided and will be awarded tonight. Trimming trees has been underway throughout the winter months. Due to the great weather, we've been able to trim many roads and in other troubled areas. One of our men went to Flagger Training School to bring him up to certification. All road crew members have to take a course every 2 years in order to flag traffic legally. Wood chips were moved from the EAC that were donated to them from Longwood Gardens. We moved chips around the edge of flower beds to help make it easier to spread. Signs are being upgraded to new highway standards on roads that are being paved and chipped this summer. Contacted Weaver Mulch about grinding up our yard waste pile, which is growing, as you know. We are set for the month of June to have this done. It will be done free of charge to the township in exchange for the ground up material. Kennett Township is working with PICO on moving a PICO pole at Raven Drive and West Hillendale Road. One of our road crew members has left for another job.
Excuse me, may I say something on that last one?
Yes.
I just found out this afternoon that if PICO moves that pole, this pole was requested to be moved by the...
This is to Kennett Township from the Independence Construction Materials Company. At a meeting held on Tuesday, February 21, the Municipal Cooperative of Southern Chester County, Pennsylvania accepted bids for road maintenance materials, services, and supplies. The purchasing committee of the cooperative made recommendations as to the lowest acceptable bidder in each category. This is to inform you that Kennett Township Board of Supervisors at a public meeting held on Monday, March 19, reviewed and we will accept the recommendations. Enclosed is a contract for blacktop as follows: wearing course 9.5 millimeters, 10 tons at $64.75 per ton.
100 tons.
100 tons, that's correct. PCBC, which is a 25 millimeter stone, 20 tons at 54. Sorry, it is 200. At $54.85 per ton, and binder course material of 19 millimeters, 200 tons at $56.35 per ton. The total contract is for $28,750. That we accept this contract.
May I ask a question? May I ask a question? Thank you. It's just informative for me. I note that all the other bids are with a 50% performance bond. whereas for this one, it's a performance bond for 100% of the bid and a payment bond for 100% of the bid. Can you explain to me why that was necessary?
No, sir, I can't. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what that. Can you point out what I would almost.
We can find out, this is set up by the co-op.
Yeah, we sort of have little to do with this because the co-op has members of many townships in the area, and they pool their needs every year to go out to bid and get a volume discount. This has been co-op has been in existence for, I think that predates me here in the township, long time ago.
We can find out.
Yeah, we will
Because
find
I don't
out.
know the answer.
Thank you. I don't object to it.
No.
I'm just trying to understand why that's
Right.
distinctive from the others.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the same preamble to a contract for fuels, and I'll read the low bids. Ultra low diesel fuel, low sulfur with additive, 6,000 gallons, not to exceed $2.19.9.
0.299%.
Above rack. Now, you're gonna ask me what rack is. Gasoline, 92 octane, 5,000
Rack
gallons.
is what the current price is for this one.
No, it's a sliding, this is a sliding bid. 5,000 gallons not to exceed 13% above rack. And the performance bond is 50%. The next bid is for line painting. 138,941 linear feet of double yellow line at .0944 per linear foot. 98,000 linear feet of white edge line at .047 per linear foot. 48 stop bars at $13 each. Only signs, $40 each. They don't have the number there, but it's $520. 13 town turn arrows at $33 each, and the total contract value is for $19,295.03 with a performance bond of 50%.
May I, Chris, would you happen to know why blacktop would be 100% bond versus all materials would be? Would you?
No.
No, okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is for road oils, RC 250 for storage tank, 3,000 gallons at $4.65 per gallon. 4,000 gallons of E3M with truck driver and hose-man, $2.68 per gallon, plus 40 hours of labor at $174 per hour. The total contract is $31,630. With the same 50% performance bond. And the last one is for delivered stone, 100 tons of half-inch number 8 aggregate at $14.58 per ton. 200 tons of 2A modified at $10.83 per ton. 100 tons of 2B special, $13.08 per ton. 200 tons of 3A modified, $11.03 per ton. 100 tons of number 3 at $12.93 per ton. 100 tons of number 1 at $12.93 per ton. 300 tons of anti-skid at $14.43 per ton. 100 tons of number 4 riprap at $16.43 per ton. 100 tons of number 5 riprap at $19.43 per ton. And 20 tons of 5/16 rice at, again I said 200 tons, thank you, of rice, 5/16 rice at $14.58 per ton. The total contract is $20,555.
I move we approve all five.
I'll second.
Any comments? Yes.
Bill Shelton, just a general question about this. The rack is on the fuel oils and other petroleum-related things. We're all expecting that petroleum products are going to change, including then delivery costs. Do the other products, stone and all the other products, have a surcharge for delivery costs or other things built into the product?
That's definitely good question. Any other questions? Hearing none, I move to question. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. So we have to sign it. Have extension?
We have one request for an extension, the Chandler Family Farm property until June 15th of this year. Move we approve that extension.
I second that. Okay, all right. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. We have no other agenda items on the agenda?
I have a question about your road crew report there. There's a
Who are you, please?
Carol Riper, Kennett Township. When there's a vacancy, a job opening with the township, are those jobs advertised probably?
Yes, indeed.
Where are they advertised? The Daily Local.
We got 40-some,
Well, we received about 60, right?
60, right?
Yeah.
So I think people read the ad.
Yeah. Yes.
Why not the Kennett?
Sorry, who are you, please?
Tracy Ellman, Kennett Township. Kennett paper advertising, is the Daily Local the largest one there?
We usually take turns between those, but for something like that, we were trying to get it out there and more widespread.
Right,
That's why we
okay.
chose the Daily.
And the other one's on weekly. Daily.
We're not hearing that. Can't hear that. What did she say?
She asked why I advertised in the Daily Local, not the Kennett paper, and I said because we were trying to get the ad out there more widespread.
And more rapidly.
Michael, I have a couple of issues that are under other business if you're at the point.
Yes.
As you know, from my very first meeting, I've been concerned about having a financial oversight committee. And,
Can you speak up a bit? Microphone.
I'm sorry.
Great to have a microphone.
Since we're out here, though, you and I share the same passion of each other. From the very first meeting, I had raised the question of the need for a financial oversight committee, and I've raised it at most of our meetings. And at the last time we were together, I told you that I would forward a draft of such a document. I had hoped to be able to email it to you earlier, but I didn't have the opportunity because it wasn't yet finished. But let me give you a copy in draft so that you have an opportunity to review it so that we can talk about it. And I would appreciate if a copy would be placed in the minutes as well. Thank you. No, I think that the rest of it we'll talk about another time. Thank you. Will that be placed on the website?
If you want to,
Minutes are on the website.
yeah, but
I don't think,
it's up to Scudder if he wants it on the website.
you want this on your website?
It's
It'll
a
be in the
first
minutes
draft.
anyway.
It's a work in progress.
Exactly, exactly.
I'm here. Now, is this something the three of you are going to talk about when you meet, talk about the other two?
Sure. That would be a good time to do it.
Okay, are there any other comments?
Richard Gott, Chester County Press. One follow-up question to the policy you're proposing, Mr. Chairman. What townships was this policy patterned after? You mentioned briefly in your remarks.
Garden, Copson, I believe West Marlboro, and there's one other that doesn't come to mind. There were 4.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
Hi, Bill Shelton. I had a question about something I read in our minutes, but I didn't attend this meeting. This was from the January 25th work session where the Whiteside conditional use decision was reached. I saw that only 2 supervisors voted on this, and I just was curious to know why that was. It wasn't clear in the minutes why that was.
Scarlett didn't, he was not here when the meetings, when the
when the
conditions
hearings were
hearings
done,
They were finished in December.
and furthermore, Alan Tolkoff was now not, at that time was not a supervisor, so he couldn't vote. So there are two reasons.
It would have been inappropriate for me to vote under those circumstances. Thank you for asking the question.
Okay, any other questions? All right. I'm not fishing for them, go ahead.
Cindy Faulkner, Kennett Township. One, I want to express concern about the positioning of video cameras in the room. I would hope that the township would adopt a position of cooperation with people who want to video the sessions. I see this is quite a nice space, a large space. I would like to see you all dedicate a space where these people can have a clear view and where they can pick up the audio. Clearly the audio is an issue in the room today, and I have concern that for whatever purpose you're using this for, and I don't know what you're using it for, but I would hope that we could cooperate with that in the spirit of transparency.
Jeff, are you having any trouble videotaping from back there?
Well, the sound doesn't come through.
The sound, well,
Sounds very weak.
microphones, and we're going to look into that, and hopefully we can get that repaired next time. But to address another part of that question, at the last public meeting, there was a gentleman sitting somewhere right about in there, and he had a rather large, what was that, an iPad? An iPad, and it was quite distracting, and he would be pointing it around at various people. So I think that was part of the reason why that part will be incorporated.
I think that's totally reasonable, and I think there can be a way to work it out so everybody will be happy on that. My second comment is, I moved to Kennett Township in 1990. I've been a resident here for 22 years. This is my first meeting. I want to voice some concern about the level of cooperation that I see among the township and the supervisors. It's concerning to me. I am concerned that the proposal of a task force, although I'm not completely familiar with the rationale for that, I am concerned that it's potentially a method that could take considerable time to set up, and I question the value of that. I would much prefer to see the Board of Supervisors work out to figure out how to conduct something as simple as an audit of the township's books. I think if a task force is going to be set up, that it should be simple. What I see in the proposal is extremely bureaucratic in my mind. It doesn't take that long to set up a task force, and if you want to set one up, I would propose that you set the remit for that task force and get it going. Because when I come here next month, I would expect to see a date by which an audit will be completed.
Well, let me see if I can just amplify a few parts of your points. The 2011 audit has been done, and it is in final draft, and that will be submitted per state requirements, I think by the end of this month, to the state. The issue pending is the audits for 2009 and 2010. And there seems to be some question about the auditor, who he was, his credentials, what he did, and where is he, among other things. And a number of questions that are germane to, not at this moment, not to the 2009 and 10 audits, because they haven't been revisited, which they are going to be, but his credentials and, among other things, where is he? We can't find him. He never cashed the checks that he was given for his professional work, and that's kind of squirrely. But we're quite anxious to find him, and we cannot. So the audits, we've gone for years in Kennett Township. We had elected auditors, and they were from the township, and they served the duties that were prescribed as an elected auditor, and that worked splendidly for a very, very long time. And then there was a problem developed among some of the auditors that came into their elected positions, and it was a little contentious, and the Board of Supervisors at that time decided that we wouldn't need to have any of the contention that was raised because of one auditor. So we have gone to professional auditors, and we have the option of doing that. Not known to most people, however, is the fact that the elected auditors do a more thorough audit than the professional one, who bases his conclusions on proper sampling of receipts and invoices and checks and so forth. And that's a proper way to do it. That's according to the CPA standards for the purpose. But elected auditors did a more thorough job. They checked every check, every bank statement, every invoice, and so forth. But that's where we are. So we have. Well, when it's being re-audited, I'm sorry, I was just thinking. It's going to be re-audited by the current auditor when he is done and after he has finished his tax season. And we believe that he will begin to do that sometime in the month of April, probably the 15th of May. And there's no urgency for it, in my view, because the state has accepted the audits that were submitted, and they have, once they're accepted as far as we're concerned, unless there's some egregious thing that they have reviewed, and we don't know that they even do that, we would have heard from them by now. So 9 and 10, as far as we're concerned, are done, but we're going to look at them again, have our auditors look at them again.
So if I make sure I understand correctly, you're saying the 2009 and 2010 audits will be completed probably by May?
No, I said they would probably begin to be started in May, in April.
Right.
In April. Let me expand on this a little bit. As far as the 2011 is concerned, we've received, as was announced, we've received a draft form of that. And we've had an opportunity to review it, the 4 of us. Certain questions were raised. A couple of areas needed to be developed a little bit further. And that the revision has now been received for further review by the 4 of us. As soon as that is accepted, then it's going to go onto the township website so that everybody can see it. The other thing is that the auditor, Tim Umbright, has agreed to make a formal presentation of the 2011 to all of us at a Board of Supervisors meeting, the May meeting. And the reason for the May meeting is because he is so tied up with the tax season that he's not going to be available to do that in April. So it's a little bit further on than what we would have preferred. But I think it's much more, we all agree on this, I'm careful how I say that it would be more appropriate for the person that did the work to be here making the presentation so that when somebody asks a question, we get the professional answer from the person who created the document in the first place. So that's going to be in May. But in the meantime, it's on the website so that we can all have a chance to look at it and be prepared for that May meeting. With any kind of luck, and I was pleasantly surprised at how quickly Tim was able to complete the 2011. So with any kind of luck, if he gets started in April, right after the tax season closes, and that would be like the 3rd week is what, somewhere in the 3rd week or a little bit later, was when he hoped to be able to get started on it. It might very well be that he'll be able to present in May. And if not then I would feel very confident that he'll have it ready for the June meeting, for the 09 and 10. Now, those are my wishful thoughts. I can't speak for Tim as far as when he'll be ready, but when I talked to him at our meeting, I felt confident that he should be able to do that very promptly, particularly in light of how quickly he did it for the 2011.
Great, thank you.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
Will there be any part that the elected auditors will play in this process?
We've not
You're
discussed that.
reviewing it, have some questions, you're doing something. Are they going to see this before it's announced to the public at May or June or whatever it is?
We have not discussed that. And we certainly can, but what we've agreed to do, when you talk about making it available to the public, it goes on the website, it's available to the public. And we agreed to do that as soon as it was received. So it should be up within the next week to 10 days. Now, I don't think we're going to have an opportunity to get together with the elected auditors and review it, and I don't know to what end. There are things that can happen or should happen for an elected auditor when you have a professional, but when you have a professional auditor in, the responsibilities of the elected auditor really are set aside.
So, right now, they don't have any function. The elected auditors that we go through the voting process and all that don't have a function.
They have one function. If a supervisor is an employee, they set his salary, period.
And it may be if the Financial Oversight Committee is worked up, that they would have a role on that. And it seemed to me that would be very obvious and appropriate role to play, because that's the background that they're bringing, presumably.
Yes.
The elected auditors are not accountants, right?
No.
They're just citizens of the, no offense.
But he can count.
Well, Mike said they did the elected auditors did a better job than.
Well, I don't think you should have said that.
Well,
I'm questioning
I think the point I was making is they do it more thorough. Better.
They look at every document. That's the difference.
But they're not
Thank you.
accountants.
Mike, I want to follow up on one of the things that you said. You were talking about Ed Johnson, and you said that that we have not been able to find him. And if I remember the work session, I think that Chief McCarthy said much the same thing. And so I'm focusing on that, but I'm remembering that when we met after the work session, you said that you had a plan by which you were going to find this man. Can you share with us what that is?
No, I'm sorry, I never said that, sir. I never said we had a plan, because we do not. However, if you read the Kennett paper editorial last week, you would find words there that suggest that there is an ongoing investigation. I know of no ongoing investigation. We are not part of any ongoing investigation. If there is an ongoing investigation going on, we would be delighted to join it. That's all I can say, that's all I know. We have no plan to investigate. The man has disappeared.
Mr. Chairman. Albert? I'm sorry, I may have not made the board aware of this. I have several questions about this individual, and I have been taking serious steps to locate him and will continue to do so. And at some point in the future, I'll share that with the board. Although it's a police investigation, and right now I am not ready to divulge that, nor do I have to. And it could be that the Kennett paper got wind of me asking some questions about this individual, and that's where they come up with their information. But I just have some questions. I'm a police officer. I'm responsible to the township. I'm responsible for the township, and that's why I elected to take this position, because it raises a lot and there's a lot of questions raised in my position about him. And I'd like to know the answers. And I do. So.
Was there another question? Go ahead, please.
Tom Cappy, I live on Indian Springs Road. Are you able to give us any kind of update on the firehouse? 101 Indian Springs Road. The house burned.
102? No, there was there an overture of some sort? There was an attempt to, yes, I can tell you that we can't tell you anything about it because we're being sued.
Well, first, could
Are you allowed to say by who?
Yes, apparently by the tenant.
Mitchell?
I don't remember the name, I'm sorry.
but I didn't know if you could say anything about the house or if anything being done with the house.
It's still under investigation until everything is